What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another exciting episode of The Extraordinary Men. This is the morning edition. For those who don't know, we do a podcast every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, and all subsequent time zone changes. Today is going to be another exciting one as it has been, hopefully a little bit more or less spice depending on what you're into on your Saturday mornings. So you guys know who the co-host with the most is. Let me go ahead and bring you in and introduce yourself.
What's going on is Midas. Make sure you put a king in front of that. Let's get it.
All right, so Midas, let's have this brief conversation really quick. First and
Mm.
foremost, thank you for dedicating every Saturday since we started this Saturday edition to making sure that you're there. That haircut is looking mighty crispy. You want to shout out your barber, man, who got you
Oh
looking all
man, I
nice over there?
appreciate that. Homie name, Carl Reed, man. He over at the Ransom Barbershop, dog. And I that name is so fitting, Ransom. Because once you go in there, you get cut up, you're kidnapped. Straight up. On the real. Like you refuse to try to look for another barber. So shout out to Carl.
That's a shameless plug. But no, nonetheless, the people who take care of you, you take care of them back and make sure that you always show reciprocity for the things that you do. So today,
Mhm.
today, about to
What we
have a
got, man?
conversation.
What we got, man?
All right,
What's in the
so
pot?
many men have this understanding or have this thought that when they are interacting with women, that the women that they interact with have a very difficult time taking the truth. So, for
Mm.
instance, you hear it over and over again. Oh, just tell me the truth. Just tell me the truth. I can handle it. It's okay. Just tell me the truth. Man tells the truth. Whole house burns down shortly afterwards. And the emotions, the windstorm, everything that ties into it. It's like I think that a lot of men feel suppressed with actually explaining things based on the magnitude of what it really is, because either they're in fear of the reaction or because of the fact that they don't necessarily know how to gauge the reaction of the women that's in their lives. And I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that women have a hard time processing the truth, although they ask for men to be truthful and forthcoming with them?
Yep. Yep. That's the end of the show. Yes. Um. Yeah. I think so because I think a lot of times that a lot of women want men to be on the same accord as that they're on, or they like to make sure that the way that they feel has some type of justification. I guess they want to feel correct because they have to be correct. You know what I'm saying? One of the need to be right. One of the sign languages or something like that that they call it. Uh, Yeah, I mean that's it. I think it's just that. Like they want to feel that what they're feeling is justified, and they want us to validate it.
Now, when this topic came up, I did my little independent study on the topic and I asked, I guess you could call it my makeshift panel about their opinion on the concept. And somebody said something I thought was real interesting. They said that women don't want the truth. They want what they believe to be true, or they want what they have convinced themselves to be the truth. Like the signs and the writing are on the wall 110%, but they're still holding out for this glimmer of hope that maybe whatever it is that they're believing in the back of their head, that they might come true. Do you think there's any merit to that?
Yeah, because honestly, I think it's on both sides with that situation because I know an individual that's holding on to an individual when they clearly see and know that the writing is on the wall. Uh, but they just got this gut feeling that this glimpse of hope is going to shine through, and it's just not. Uh, yeah, I think it's on both sides, really. but more so on the young lady side because I've actually watched this video go viral where this young lady said that she actually prefers and enjoys living in her delusion because she does not want to operate in reality, and I think that is a lot of women today.
Okay, so when you say a lot of women today, like what are we talking about exactly as far as a lot of women today?
So, and I want to make sure that I'm safe and not saying all. We have to put that disclaimer out there, not all, but I think a lot of women today, as far as that delusion, the 666, six figures, 6 inches, six pack, 666, and that's just not reality. And for some reason, they're trying to force this reality, force this delusion to be a reality. When in reality, pretty much almost all men make 50,000 or less, or 60,000 or less. Like that is like the norm. It's average across the board, across the world, really. And that this push for this unicorn, uh, this is crazy.
So let me ask you this:
Hmm.
do you think, by and large, that many people bank on the outlier situation, meaning that yes, I know the stats, yes, I know the averages, yes, I know all of the statistical
They don't
data.
care about that. Stats, statistics, logic, none of that matters because that has nothing to do with what I've seen. That has nothing to do with what I experienced. That has nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying? Like those outliers are like driving factors for a lot of individuals. You know, maybe one out of every million may get that unicorn. But you also have to take into consideration of what that one person or what that one outlier offered for her to be in position to get that. Do you offer the same things? Do you have the same things? You qualify there's levels to this and there's qualifications for this. And I think that whole thing of qualifications gets thrown out the window because if they know for a fact that if I don't fit this specific type of criteria, well, then that's where the whole notion of you're just being misogynistic and all this and that comes in because they know for a fact they don't fit the criteria or fit the bill to obtain this 666.
I mean, do you think that the concept of I guess the concept of delusion, do you think that it's something that like what did it come from? Who like where did it come from?
No clue. I have no idea. All the sexual liberation, uh, being like overwhelmingly demanding, requiring, you know what I'm saying, this large amount of money and you know what I'm saying? Like I have no idea where it came from. No clue.
So do you think anybody has the right to demand what they think that they're worth?
No. There she is. What's up, Kita? Kita.
Like open the
She
chat
said, "Y'all
box.
sound like y'all want to smoke today." um, does a person have a right to demand what they think they're worth or
Yeah.
deserve?
I mean, if you look at it from the metrics, right?
Hmm.
Would we have billionaires if people just felt like, yeah, I'll get enough and I'll go? Somebody had to be the outlier situation. So somebody has to be the lottery winner. Like somebody's got to win it. Somebody's got to be that person. And do you think that that mentality of that somebody should be me is what the driving force behind a lot of people's delusional behavior?
Yeah, what? Yeah, it's the whole why not me, and I think that's perfectly fine to have if you're not setting these unrealistic standards behind that why not me. So, for example, uh, Kareem set the highest scoring of all time in the NBA. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 38,000 points or something like that. And then LeBron came with the well, why not me too? And then he worked his ass off to hit it and become the top scoring athlete in the NBA of all time. The part that's crazy about it, or what brings in the delusion behind that, is there's no work behind what they think that they deserve.
Mm.
There's no work ethic behind it. You don't put yourself in a position to be able to come to the table and negotiate like an adult. You know what I'm saying? You can't come to the table when you have no work experience. You got all the penis experience in the world. But you ain't got no real life, real world experience. Uh Argumentative, combative, and all this the entitlement. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're gorgeous, and the subscribe is blocking me again, but just because you're gorgeous and you arm candy and eye candy and all this and that, like that's simply not enough. That's you cannot come to the table with that level of entitlement thinking that you deserve something when there's no solid resume behind as to why you deserve that.
Okay, so we're we have an understanding. And when I say we, I mean you, myself, other people that we deem as respectable men. We have a understanding of something that's fairly simple, and that's that the market determines what it is. That I don't determine what it is. However, what it is that I work toward, like for instance, if I have a skill and that skill that I have is so above average. Again, like the LeBron example, like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar example. But whatever skill set that you may even speak of, like it doesn't really matter if that skill set is in demand and you're the best at it. You'll reap the most benefits from what it is.
Right.
Well, how does that translate for women in that department?
Um I think it translates kind of more of how you kept yourself, how you operated. Uh, I know today finding a virgin is pretty much almost impossible, and men have grown to adapt to that I guess philosophy. I guess you can call it philosophy. I don't know. Uh, but I think that it's other aspects that's in there. Like Andrew Tate said, I don't want my woman to have scars. I don't want my woman to have went through a world of different experiences and traumas and everything, because that leaves nothing for me. Not minus the trauma. I ain't with all that, but it leaves nothing for me to try to present to you and show you and take you different places and all that, because you already been through it. So the I think purity is what she can really like provide and bring to the table.
So, would purity be synonymous with inexperience?
Uh, yeah, yeah,
I don't know. It's
inexperience.
kind of a slippery slope.
It is. I want to see what Keita was talking about. That sounds selfish.
I don't know because like when I hear that, what it sounds like is that we all, to a certain degree, are holding each other to unrealistic metrics. And I don't know if it's
I
a
think so. I think so. I think so. But I think there's still a limit to it. There's still a limit to it. Okay, you're not a virgin. Okay, all right, that's cool. But that don't mean that you have to go out and girls gone wild. And sounds like a fantasy and not a reality. As far as a man wanting a virgin, but yeah, like nothing. Again, like we've adapted and accepted the fact that women aren't going to be pure these days. Like the sexual liberation has made sure of that. But that don't mean that I need to be number 51 in the roster. I need to be number 102 in the roster. Like that's a problem, regardless of how sexually liberated you are. Like that doesn't negate the fact that we don't want you to be out there like that. The promiscuous woman has always been negative a negative thing in society. Period. In any religion, in any culture, in any country, in any whatever, it's always been negative, and it still is. It's not going to change.
All right, so let's deviate a little bit off of the sexual end,
Mm-hmm.
and let's look at it more so like this. When we start talking about, I guess, market value,
Mm-hmm.
we are honing in on the concept of the lie or the inability to accept the truth. When we start having conversations about what the market dictates and how it dictates what it likes, what it doesn't like, what it ranks high, what it ranks low,
Mm-hmm.
do you think men and women equally see their value the same way? Do you think that men or women are more realistic in regard to how they rank themselves amongst others?
I think men have always operated in a more realistic manner, simply because we have to do and provide more, if not all. So we've always operated in a more logical way, and I think that uh, I just leave it at that. I think men operate in a more realistic. You know what I'm saying? Like we're more used to the rejections. We can take rejections and handle that a lot better. We can take a no better. Uh, and I think women today, or a lot of women, can't take a no. Like, what, you don't like all this? Are you serious? You saying no to this? Yeah, I'm saying no to that. Uh, and I think that they can't handle the rejections, and they're starting to feel how a man feels for real, because they want to be in this independent manly role, and they're starting to feel what a man go through for real when it comes to all these rejections and all these double standards and all of that. It's becoming reality to them, and they starting to see it and feel it for real.
And by any means, if anybody is in the chat world and you want to chime in on any of the things that's being said, or you think that we may have something, I guess, not exactly correct, by all means, we open the door to Discord. We open the door to opposing points of view.
Yeah.
So please, by all means, make sure to leave your comments in the chat. Like I tell anybody, I'm Mr. Google Facts. I have absolutely no problem being wrong, because if I don't learn, then I don't grow. In the instance of what's being said here, just to recap anybody who's just tuning in or who's missed out on part of the conversation, what we're talking about is men and women, we're talking about the differences in how we see ourselves, how we see our value, how market determines value, and whether or not women are more or less likely to be able to handle the truth or handle the reality of a situation versus how a man would have to do it. Now, again, this is a man's show. Most of what we speak of is from a man's perspective. So we're speaking based off of the way that we see things based on other men and their experiences, mixed with a little bit of our own experiences, mixed with what's going on in society as a whole, what's going on in culture, what's going on the internet, what's happening around us, the cultural shift that we've watched happen since we were young men into the ages that we are. So we're not far-fetched, just trying to connect some dots. So please feel free to throw something in there, a little salt, a little spice, a little sauce on them ribs, as we say.
Yeah, sauce on the ribs. Please add some sauce on the ribs because we may have missed something or completely missed a whole different set of ideas that saying somebody can present to us and we can start going down that path. So yeah, please chime in.
So going on for that, women's empowerment over the last, I'll just say 20 years, because that's been most of the time that I've actually been cognizant of what's been going on. So really over the past, give or take 20 years, you've seen a lot of strides take place in women's empowerment. I think that a lot of what has happened was necessary. I think that there's still so much more room to go as far as women's empowerment is concerned. But I do think that there's a fatal flaw when it comes down to the whole equality conversation. Because when we start talking about having equality, the gender pay gap, and other things, there's some nuances that I missed out on, and I think that that is another serious lie or mistruth or a bastardization of a truth that people have been led to believe to be true without actually really peeling back the data to validate the claim. Yeah, I continue.
Yeah.
I think I shall. So when it comes down to a lot of these situations, there are a lot of people who are convinced that women and men make considerably less money for the same work. In some cases, this may be true, but there are other factors to take in. How many hours are you working versus your counterpart? How much
See,
of the load
that's
you
the
carry?
delusion, Mike.
You said what?
That's the delusion.
Well,
Because there are these other factors that take place and they don't want to hear these other factors or take into account of these other factors.
well, I won't say that they don't. What I will say is that I think that because this voiceover has been so loud for so long, that the voice of opposing or dissenting thought gets drowned out somewhere down the line. But I think that when we have conversations with reasonable women
Hmm.
that actually decide that they want to listen, that actually want to value what it is that we bring to the table, they come to the realization that it's like, hey, you know what? There's there are some flags on the play. There are some differences in here. There are some things that have been misquoted and misstated.
Correct.
Now, is that indicative of the whole population? Probably not. But like we say, we don't deal in all.
Right.
What I would say to anybody is the fact that there are other factors that come in, and I believe that because of the fact that the the the, the race for equality is being skewed with equity,
Yeah. Yes.
being made whole and being made equal are not the same. So when it comes down to a situation to where I cannot bear children, no matter what I do, my body will not ever carry a body. It's no possible way.
Hmm.
So I don't have an alternative of bringing a child into the world other than going through a woman.
Right.
So when you have a situation like that, the idea of what one brings that another one brings is not the same. However, you need this element and this element to create the life in the first place. You can't create a life without the other one. You need both elements, but this one is the gateway that brings that life into the world. So when we start talking about equal, equity, whatever we want to call it, I know that there are laws in place and everything else that if she says she doesn't want to bring it in, there's no equal representation over here.
Correct.
None. There's no legal protections whatsoever that's going to force a woman to bring that child into the world if she doesn't want to. Now, when it comes down to this situation over here, how many CEOs do we have? How many high power positions, how many high paying positions are being divvied out to capable women? Yes, at the extremes, there are some gaps, some huge gaps. But then, you know what? There are also some huge gaps in the most undesirable jobs in society,
Correct.
where you have majority of CEOs and Fortune 500 uh, chair people are men. Majority of the most undesirable jobs are men. Sanitation workers, I
Mhm.
mean,
Construction.
construction, I mean, I guess home rehab and stuff will qualify as that. And again, it's not to say that there aren't women who are interested in doing those things. It's just saying that at the extreme level, it is not a level playing field because over here is not as desirable to do. And over here, majority of what was built to get these positions or get these companies to where they were created by men in the first place. That does not
Hmm.
mean a woman isn't capable of doing it. Doesn't mean she's incapable of doing a job. It's just the fact that we can't only push for equality here and never have the conversation here. It has to live
Yeah.
in both areas in
Yeah. I
order
was
for it
having a
to be.
conversation.
You said what?
I was having a conversation with my wife earlier this week about that, and I brought up, how is it that today there's absolutely no barriers, no boundaries, no anything, if there ever was any, uh, as to what's stopping women from being able to make ginormous, huge leaps and bounds moving forward when it comes to starting to run these businesses. And okay, there is a construction company that's all women ran, but that's only one. There's nothing in the way stopping y'all at all. You know what I'm saying? Where's the company that wants to go out and start competing with Tesla and Lucid and Rivian and all these other up and coming electric companies? What's stopping women from producing the next Amazon? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing stopping y'all. So that whole equality and all of that, like it just, I don't know. To me, it just don't exist. Don't exist. Because there are no barriers. You can do whatever you want. If you want to produce top tier televisions, you can do that. If you want to produce a top tier car, you can do that. If you want to be the next construction company that builds the next Golden Gate Bridge and all that, you can do that. There's nothing stopping them. If they want to compete with SpaceX, they can do that. There's nothing stopping them. But we
So,
just don't
question.
see the huge leaps and bounds them doing it, banding together and doing it. The WNBA still doesn't have the stands filled. There's nothing stopping them from banding together and doing it.
So let me ask you this: do you think that there's a layer of, and again, I wanted to tie this into the point that I made earlier in regard
Hmm.
to we have situations to where there are very reasonable, valid arguments in that sphere of the world
Hmm.
or in that sphere of
There
Western
are.
philosophy and the worldview. However, it always seems to shred apart when it comes down to the extremes. That are we pushing for opportunities to be competitive in the marketplace against the male dominated companies, or are we fighting for positions of leadership in already established companies where men are traditionally in charge? Are we blaming the men that are in those positions for the reason why there are no women there? Is that the direct correlation? Is the fact that this company is XYZ because it's male dominated?
Get
That's
in
that's
there.
a question to be had.
Get in there.
Well, again, like what is the popular ideology that is tying the think tank together? How does it how does it correlate, so to speak?
I mean, NASCAR is a predominantly ran man sport until Danica showed up. How come we got no more Danicas to back her up? That would have been dope. A whole entire pit crew of women. That would have been dope. That is dope. But they not there. That's not on us, bro. They have to be the ones that want to go out there and do that and produce that and bring it forth.
Well, the question is that a thing of interest? Is that
I'm
is it
pretty
really?
sure.
Well, my thing is again, it's like, is it indicative of a real thing, or is it indicative of this anecdotal idea that is like, man, it would be great if we do? And I think that a lot of times we get lost in the realm of, because something would be a cool option to do, because I know that I can do, I choose not to. But then in the event that you do that, then it's like, well, what exactly is the popular view? What
Well,
exactly
see,
is the argument? What is the thought process?
well,
And
see,
again,
you stumbled upon something there, Mike. You stumbled upon something. Yeah, it seems like a great idea. It might seem like a great, what I'm saying, venture to go down. But do I really want to do that? Okay, most of the jobs today, and even back then, that most of the jobs that women choose are the more cushy jobs. HR, CNA, nursing, stuff like that.
well, I won't say
So
necessarily more cushy, because nursing is highly demanding. But I will say that dealing with the public and dealing more human relations, more human to human interaction is
I,
more.
I get what you're saying, but I'm talking extremely more labor intensive jobs. You know what I'm saying? uh, installing satellites actually took a lot of physical work. And some situations, you gotta actually dig 6 foot holes in the ground with your hands and pour concrete. Sometimes you have to climb up a 40-foot ladder holding a cinder block that weigh about 30, 40 pounds. Climbing up a ladder. That's what I'm talking. That's what I mean by more cushy jobs. Jobs like that are not cushy jobs. And it's not saying that there ain't women out there that will do that. They probably are doing that, but it's not in droves. It's not in high numbers that they're doing that. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm
Oh,
here.
okay.
No, y'all remember I'm a pet lover, so I got cats and things running around here, and they want attention early in the morning. So forgive me if y'all hear the little meows and little off in the background. I can't get up and scurry them away, so just bear with me. I'm a cat dad too, you know.
Nah, you good. You good. Cat daddy, you good.
Did you call me cat daddy? Come on,
Cat
bro, ain't that
daddy.
old? All right, all right. So I want to go ahead and spin the conversation a little bit, and I really want to focus on a couple of things that we as men could do to help women see things a little more clearer.
Okay.
If not for anything else, but based on meeting in the middle with an understanding about how we see things versus how many of them have been led to believe that things should go. So let's start here. I'm gonna take my professor glasses off. So with this being said, um, what's one popular cliche that you could think of that you've heard women regurgitate that talking point over and over and over again, that we know this to be a fallacy?
One popular. I'm sorry. What again, Mike?
Like one popular is like a popular talking point that you've heard women say over and over again, that we know this to be extremely inaccurate. It's just a huge fallacy, and it doesn't really end well, or it doesn't really work.
Mm,
Here, I'll start. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, yeah.
For instance, sexual liberation.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
when it comes down to the concept of sexual liberation, it is the advancement of birth control, the advancement of other opportunities for women to be able to take part in sex and not have to have the fear of bearing a child or deal with
The
the
responsibilities,
not the
the
responsibilities. I'll say
consequences.
more so the stigma of you can wait. You have time to start a family. You could get what you need to. You can get the pleasure out of taking part in this without it automatically resulting in you becoming a mom, which
Mm,
gave more freedom to say, oh, I can go and start me a career. I can go and travel. I can go and do this, this, and this. And it gave this time barrier to where the fallacy in that is that window of time that a woman has to bear children. Now, in the event that a woman doesn't want children, then I guess that goes out the window. But
right.
ultimately, what I've noticed in a lot of women that are older who forego family life to pursue careers and to pursue other opportunities, they are miserable as older people.
Yeah.
And the
That
thing
also
about it is
rolls.
the
Oh
fact,
no, my bad, my bad. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, the thing is that the echo chamber does not the people in those positions, whether for shame reasons, guilt reasons, or whatever, behind closed doors, they will have these conversations. And I've had multiple 40 and 50-year-old women who are crying their eyes out because their biggest regrets was passing up that guy that wanted to marry them and provide a life for them and working themselves up into a company and getting all the accolades, all the stuff that they could ever wanted, but they never had children. And now they're at the age to where they're looking back at their lives and they have nothing but stuff.
Yeah. I think you touched on two more within that same span of statement there, which is one, uh, the higher you go, the more money you make, the more accolades that you get, the more attractive you think that you're gonna be to a mate that possibly is on the same caliber as you. That's not true. Uh, you also going through the ranks and moving up and getting your money and getting your accolades and all that, and thinking that a man is still gonna be there at the end of you being 35, 40, 45, 50, thinking that a man is still going to be there. That's not true because you're going to go from, hey, shorty, what's up? You know what I'm saying? To, hey, Miss Pearl, can I help you with your groceries? You're going to, you know what I'm saying? Like you go from that to that
Do
quickly.
you do you think it's possible for a woman to obtain huge success or huge wins and still treat her man like the king?
Yes. Yes. There, dude, we do not have any type of regard as far as a woman wanting to go out and do what she wants to do. If she wants to be the movie star, if she wants to be the judge, if she wants to be the doctor, we ride with you for that. It's what comes along with that that's the problem. It's almost like they don't know how to handle being in such a high position or an award winning position or whatever you want to call it, because the ego gets big, the head and all that gets big, the attitude changes, the you can't tell me you can't tell me nothing, you who do you think you are, you know what I'm saying, like all of that comes along with that, and that's the problem that women are having these issues with men about, or men having these issues with women about.
Do you think that women have a problem being honest with other women when they see women mistreating men or
Yeah.
belittling men because they
Yes.
might be in a better financial situation? or they might be in a better life situation, or whatever the perception may be. They might drive a better car, live in a better neighborhood. Do you think that women who see straight have a problem addressing the women who act out like that toward men?
Yeah, because they don't want to be that outlier friend. They don't want to be the buzzkill or what would insert whatever here with that situation. But they all girls are on code, whether they see straight or whether they see crooked. They're on code with each other. There is a girl code, and they gon' ride. They may not like it, and they know for a fact they don't like it, but they gon' ride.
Shakita, if you still in here, I need to know.
Yeah.
Are you going?
Am I right? Am I right or wrong?
We're not
All
asking.
women are on code.
We're not asking you or any woman out there to spill the beans. We just need to know if, by and large, do y'all have a code of ethic amongst women to where y'all understand. I just need to know if you out there. Just type in the box. Call me now for your free tarot reading. Come on now. Along with this, along with this, I do believe in my heart of heart that the lack of unity that men have is a great reason why it's so easy for the level up culture to look down at us when we're not established and not successful. I think that there's been a stigma that's been passed on to where it's just like men will see, first and foremost, one thing that makes me cringe is when I hear a man comment on what a woman does for a living. Not necessarily his woman, but he just starts dating a woman like, yeah, I just met so and so. Yeah, she a nurse, man. She drive a such and such and such. It's just like that irks me on the inside that a man could be so invested in material gains that a woman has acquired.
Yeah.
Generally, when I see that behavior, is usually because the woman that he's talking about is in a much better situation than he is. And she, in fact, will more than likely be the level up for him. That really, I mean, it boils my blood. It's like, why is this important? What man with the ambition to provide is concerned about her stuff?
Mm.
Anyway, off that note, I do think that a stigma has been developed to where there's this belief that a lot of women have, and there might be a reality that a lot of women could share, that they have men with potential. You know, that's a show. We're gonna talk about those. We're gonna talk about y'all men with potential and have a whole conversation about the almost could have, sort of, kind of, in a way, if I only just had a little bit of, but never get nowhere. We're gonna have a conversation about y'all real soon. But they incorporate these guys with potential, these guys who have a good talk game, who show just enough glimmers of light that they could do it. And then you have women who are just constantly investing and shoveling stuff into them. And then it turns out to be a disaster. I wonder how big is that sample space of women who have experienced this with men legitimately, and how many women are using other women's stories as if it's their own reality.
Yeah. I mean, real quick, I don't encourage no woman to build a man. Let's start there, because that's a huge one where you said women are pouring into these guys. I don't encourage that. I banish you to the planet of whatever. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not waste your resources and all of your time and effort and whatever else you got going on to pour into a man that you know for a fact ain't gonna do nothing for you. Good good penis game, but that's all he's giving you. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe in building a man. He needs to build himself. And then y'all could build something together. But what was that second part you said?
It was along the lines of there's how big is the sample space of women who have that experience, and how many
And
women are adopting those women's stories or those women's experiences as if they're their own.
they're
It's
their
almost
own.
like
Then it's
it's almost like the people who scream racism at a situation, but then the people who have actually received racism or police brutality are like this. But
that
then
small.
this
Yeah,
many people are citing it as if it's everybody's experience. But the
yeah,
majority of people who are screaming have never actually witnessed it in person.
yeah. You don't get to take your friend or your neighbor, auntie, whatever. You don't get to take their experience and then pass it off as if that's real life for you. You don't get to do that. And that's that falls under the umbrella of believe all women. That's dangerous, dog. That's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things that I've ever done in my adult life is just to look at a situation and assess it for what it is, not necessarily how I felt about it. And that's one of the things that I try to encourage every woman to do is that no matter how you feel about a situation, you have to understand the fact that without taking time to really look at the long view of a situation, there isn't really an understanding of where it's going to go. There's no real understanding of how it's going to grow from nothing to something eventually out of nothing at all. What I mean by this is I can see that you give somebody a shot, but months down the line, once you start getting to know this person, or once you start seeing behaviors from a person, after a while, it's just like you have to be able to remove your emotions from the situation and say, and you know what, I'm gonna say this too. And I'm gonna ask this as a general question because I think this applies to both men and women, but it applies to a lot of women that I know. How many of you guys have lied to yourself about the reality of a situation because you didn't want to feel stupid or you didn't want to feel like a failure because of how much you invested into a situation?
Mm.
How
You know
many
the
of you
best
guys?
way.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. Oh, all
I
right.
was going to
I was
go ahead.
gonna say the best way to get out of a hole is to simply stop digging. That's it. Like you're constantly pouring energy and resources into this situation. Just stop. Take it for what it is. Accept it. Take the hit on the chin. Accept the reality that for what it is, and move on. Move on. Get yourself together and move on.
Now the big question is it always that simple? Is it always that easy to do? Because we're talking about people who not only have their emotions invested, but they also have their finances invested. They have so many different layers of themselves invested into a situation. How do you, is it just an easy snip and go? Or is there a process that they have to go through in order to try to fix that problem?
It's
Because
only a.
I think one of the things that happens a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time, and this is one of the byproducts of being emotional or operating out of your emotions, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
is that one of the negative attributes of that is the fact that that bad experience will taint a lot of other experiences that you have for the future. So therefore, the guy that really deserves it will be right behind the guy that took you for a ride and you will just completely piss your blessing away because you didn't learn anything from the last situation. Instead, what you did is you closed yourself off. I don't want to feel. So I'm going to bury myself in work, bury myself in school, bury myself in career, bury myself in all of these other things because one or a couple of really bad decisions stigmatize you and put you in a very bad place to where you don't ever want to feel that thing again. But there's no logic behind it. So you're replacing one really bad decision with another really bad decision.
I think the severability is easy if you're not married. Period. Holding on and trying to fix it, to me, is only worth it if there's a marriage. That's it. Kids or not. If you're not married, the severability is easy. Pack your shit, leave.
Uh, I don't know.
I have no entitlement to you. I'm not attached to you. I have no vows, I have no contract, I have nothing to you at all.
I don't know. I don't know because that begs the question on whether or not marriage is a social or religious construct.
Both.
Because in biblical times when a man and a woman came together, there was no pastor, there was no ring.
There was no marriage. Didn't exist.
But no. If you look at it, for what a marriage is constituted as, when a man took a woman to be his bride, he took that woman to be his bride. That was his woman. That's who he did everything with. That's who he did everything for. The legal aspect of a marriage, as far as creating a system that protects the woman and her vested interest in the marriage. So it's like, yeah,
What
for a
about
lot
the
of people,
man's
it would be
vested
hard to
interest in
walk.
the marriage?
You said what?
What about the man's vested interest in the marriage?
He chose the woman. That was his vested interest.
They chose each other because she
That ain't that
agreed.
all. Okay,
He
so
pursued and then she agreed.
here's again. I don't want to disagree with that notion, but that's surface level. Because in the event that the situation goes left, who has the majority of the legal protections, especially if there are children involved?
The woman.
So the thing is that this institution, when it became a state institution, was to protect the vested interest of the woman. Because you could be married, in some situations, she can have a kid with somebody else,
Then that's your child.
and you're legally bound to taking
You're
care of
legally
that
bound
child.
to the child. Yes.
But you protecting her and absolving her of responsibility for her irresponsibility because of the institution that you signed into. It's not protecting you or your wallet.
That's what I'm getting at.
But we saying the same thing.
Okay.
All right, so we got here say when a man took a woman to bed, committed his life to her, they were married. Yeah, that's what it was. That's
Yeah,
what the consummation of a marriage was. At
yes.
least that's what it was supposed to be.
But it wasn't standing in front of a pastor and reading vows and saying, that's not what a marriage was.
Well, yeah, again, that's
Mhm.
that's part of the social construct of how it was
Correct.
created.
That's why I said
to
it's
be.
both.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like there are situations where people have been together for God knows how many years, and they have a good relationship together. They just don't believe in the traditional source of marriage, and it's worked out just fine. Now, again, is that the rule or is that the outlier situation?
That's an outlier situation because women want marriages.
Well,
They don't want the man. They want the wedding.
That's meeting an outlier with outlier. Meeting outlier with we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. But what I can say is this, and it's like I absolutely agree when it comes down to people who have hopes of fixing it, and that's why they hold on. The motivations or the ambitions of why we trying to fix it is what's at question. Because for me, it's like I don't want to dedicate 20 years to something only for me to walk out with nothing and just laying flat on my face. It's like, man, the relationship with my kids are
Well,
severed. The relationships with
right.
my family, I'm looked at cockeyed in society because of whatever the circumstance may be. I'm being
Mhm.
painted as something that I'm really not because she's angry, because of whatever the situation may have been. I may be guilty of a part of it, but what happens in a situation where I'm completely justified for the divorce? It's still looked at sometimes as
It's still looked at as your problem, your fault.
no. I mean, like I've seen situations like this, and I swear to God, it's mind-boggling to me to where if a guy does something, shame on you for being as a man for doing what you did. But then on the retrospect, when a woman does something, well, what did he do to drive you to that?
Yeah,
Well, what happened? How long were you suffering? Was he emotionally depriving you? What was he doing that made you feel like you had to go out and go do it? It's like literally, it's the accountability aspect of the fact that you are also an adult who is capable of knowing
yes.
right from wrong. And when you do things like be emotionally manipulative and withhold sex and other things that you know that you have over me, and when it leads to a downfall of the relationship, is there somebody on the other side saying, "Well, why won't you give him sex? That's your husband. That's your job.
Yeah,
Outside of raising the kids and maintaining the house, that's like mission number one."
yeah.
So it's just those thoughts of the situation when you see these things that happen where you don't necessarily know where people stand or how they see things or how their understanding of things are when it comes down to marriage, relationships, what social constructs versus what the biblical order of things are. If you even apply the biblical order, is there a new wave of people who can just come together and like, hey, listen, we just roommates who do the thing together. We split everything down the middle. We do everything. We take trips together. We plan everything together. Is that going to be what the future is going to be in lieu of traditional marriage? Is that going to be the new offer? Because if women are out earning men or outpacing men, would it value them to go into a relationship to where in a divorce situation she may have to pay him because she's more financially inept than himself?
I haven't seen it happen yet.
Oh, it's happened plenty of times.
I have seen, one-off situations to where the woman ends up having to pay the child support and things of that nature. Or I have seen one instance where the woman has lost full primary custody and things of that nature. But again, those are outlier situations. It's not happening on a large scale.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's just like I just mentioned that as far as a thinking point, as far as looking at the way of the world, do we see a shift coming? And is there going to be a new wave of think that with the way that women have been conditioned to think, not all, but the way that society is perpetuating generalized thoughts amongst women, is this something that we possibly will be seeing introduced in the future?
I would hope so. You know what I'm saying? I would think that if the amount of money is now so-called being spread or distributed equally and evenly, then I we should see evenly that alimony is now being paid by women. We should see more of child support being paid by women. Uh, and other situations, women. We should see it. So yeah.
Well, guys, that is our show today. First and foremost, thank you guys for tuning in as always. The Extraordinary Men, very pleased with the fact that you guys always show up and show out in the comments and always share, like, and subscribe to our content. If you guys have any questions about the things that we talk about, if we sound like chauvinist pigs, by all means, put a little piggy in a put a little pig in the chat box. Let us get a chance to see what y'all think about us for real. No, serious note though. Any closeout remarks on today's topic?
No, nothing crazy. Just that I think that uh, understanding the facts, knowing these facts, knowing the stats, and not banking on the outliers, I think is really really important. Especially, I know we talked about the pay gap. I think that, and I really hope that a lot of women aren't having, the thought process of, well, this guy over here is some type of mechanical engineer or rocket scientist or something like that, and your HR. I don't think that those jobs should equate to being paid the same, and or if you need to take time off, that you still receive the same pay, because I think that's what the argument is. I don't think it's more so along the lines of actual pay. I just think of how the pay structure works. If I don't work, I don't see a check. And I don't know on what other planet that way of the money being paid works, but that's how it's supposed to work here. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Or if you don't take on a high paying position, a high paying job, or a labor intensive job, then you don't see the labor intensive pay. And I think what's happening, or at least I think that teacher or all these other, non labor intensive jobs, they're looking for that same type of pay. And if they need to take the maternity leave and all that, they still want that same pay. I think that's where this issue was coming in at. So I don't know. It's just a thought. It could be for another talking topic for another episode. I don't know, but I think that's where that whole pay gap situation is based in.
Um, I think that to your point, there's a lot of digging that has to be done. I think, like anything else, when men and women come to the table and they can have legitimate conversations about things that can be proven, along with the thoughts and feelings that come along with the living life experience. I think that one of the most important things that we have to understand is the fact that we're in this together, whether we like it or not. Whether
Right.
it's a harder fought fight or not, we still have to find some type of mutual ground in order to coexist. And it's difficult when people are convinced that they don't have when they when you've already been convinced that you are a victim class. When you're already convinced that you have the obvious, evident losing position, and that you have to fight, 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 fight. It doesn't equate to a positive outcome most times, especially when you're fighting your potential partners. You're fighting the people that you're supposed to build with, as if us on the
Mhm.
ground level are the ones that are responsible for your quote unquote oppression. It's not us. We have no dog in the fight to oppress women, to take advantage of you. We lose just as much as you do by breaking up families, by
Mhm.
creating discord, by not really understanding how to coexist and be interdependent with one another. It's one of the greatest travesties that could possibly continue to happen. And as long as the family structure and every other structure that we've had in place is continuously being ripped to shreds, we'll never truly grow to our full potential. Anyway, that's our time, guys. Thank you again for tuning into the Extraordinary Men podcast. Peace.